In this video, we are going to look at truthy and falsey values. To do this, we are going to use the bool function. If I hover over the bool function here, it tells us that it returns true when the argument x is true, false otherwise. And it is talking about this value x right here, which is any value we pass into the function. Truthy values are any object that inherently has value. So for numeric types, any non-zero number, strings that are not empty, list or tuple, sets, dictionaries that have at least one element in them, stuff like that is true. And then empty strings, the none type, numeric types that contain zero, or collections that do not have any elements in them would be false. So if I were to put a 1 in here and run this, 1 is inherently truthy, so we get the value true. However, if I put in a 0 and run this, we get the output false. It works the same for floats. So if I put 0.0, we also get the value false. I put in a string that has no characters in it at all, we get false. And if I put even just one character in it, we get true. And it also works with lists. So if I were to pass in my list 1 here that contains the value 0, 1, 2, 3 and run this, we get true back because there is value here. But if I were to pass in an empty list, which is just a pair of square brackets with nothing in it, we get back false. The Python language also provides built-in functions for any and all, which will check through a collection to see if any value is truthy or if all values are truthy. So I'm going to replace this with the any function. And if I hover over it, it tells us that it returns true if bool x is true for any x in the iterable. So if we pass in any kind of iterable, a list, a tuple, a string, anything that is an iterable, it will return true if any value is truthy. So I'm going to pass it list 1 here, which has the truthy values of 1, 2, and 3. So this is going to return true. And when I run that, we get the true. Now, if I change this any function to the all function and mouse over it, it tells us that it returns true if bool x is true for all values in x in the iterable. Well, this has a 0 right here, which is inherently false. So when I pass the list 1 into it for the all function, this is going to return false because not every single value in here is truthy. So we get this false right here. And now that we've been able to see the bool constructor, the any function, and the all function, I want to show you some empty objects and some non-empty objects. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I'm going to make my terminal smaller so that we can see everything. I'm going to go ahead and uncomment this. And in case you're wondering, the hotkey to comment out multiple lines is holding down Control and then hitting K, then C. And to uncomment them, you hold Control, hit K, and U. So now we have our empty objects, which is just a list of all the different objects that would be considered empty or falsey. So we have a list, an integer, a float, an empty single quote string, an empty double quote string, an empty dictionary, an empty tuple, an empty set, an empty frozen set, the none type, and false. So if I print any for empty objects, it's going to check to see if any of these objects at all are truthy in nature, which is going to come back as false. And I'm going to give myself just a little more room here. And when I run this, we'll see that we get the output false because none of these empty objects here are truthy in any way. So I'm going to go ahead and comment this out by holding Control and hitting KC. And I'm going to scroll down and show you non-empty objects. Here you'll see we have a list that's non-empty. It has one element in it. We have an integer that is non-zero. We have a float that is non-zero. We have a single quote string with a single character in it. We have a double quote string with at least one character in it. We have a dictionary with one key value in it. And we have a tuple with a few elements in it. We have a set with a few elements in it. We have a frozen set with a few elements in it. And we have the true Boolean type. So down here, I have print all for non-empty objects. So this is going to tell us if every object in here is in fact truthy in nature. So when I run this, it's going to tell us true because all of these objects are truthy in nature.